A warm welcome to those attending and are viewing our live on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Henry Higgins and I am the chairman of this meeting. Details of business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible in the room and online underneath the live broadcast. For those present in the room and not intending to speak, please note that you will be filmed and any statement you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder to anyone speaking today that your voice will only be audible online if the microphone is switched on. That's if you're a petitioner and you're coming to the table. Obviously, with the councillors, they should know this, and officers. We are not expecting a fire alarm today, so any drills. So if it is a fire alarm, please follow the officers out of the building. If you have your mobiles or other tablet devices, can you make sure that they're switched off or on silent? Although some council members use their own computers or tablets. We'll go to the attendees first. First I'll start with the councillors. Councillor Steve Tuckle, my Vice Chairman. Councillor Saria Ahmad. Walid. Councillor Philip Cawthorne, thank you for coming. I know you're a substitute. Councillor Borough, again, thank you. You're another substitute, but Democratic Service will make that official a little bit later. Councillor Alan Kaufman, welcome. And my opposite lead, Councillor John Ross. Officers present at this meeting are Ros Johnson, the Planning Service Manager, sitting next to me, and planning team leader Fiona Ray, and the Transport Officer Alan Tilley, Legal Advisor Kerry Monroe, and the person that's most important is the Democratic Service Officer Anisha Teji. We will now go to the agenda. Can I have apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies received from Councillor Brightman with Councillor Cawthorne substituting, and also from Councillor Dillon with Councillor Beera substituting. Okay,
declaration of interest and matters coming forward. I have two. Councillor Steve Tuckle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in agenda item 8 this evening. The interest is that this particular application sits right on the boundary of my own ward and a neighbouring ward, Cavendish. Back in July of last year, before I joined this committee, I did enter into dialogue with a Cavendish councillor in relation to advice on this planning application. So it was before I joined the committee, but it's come before us today, so I thought I would declare that and I will leave the room for that determination.
Thank you. Councillor Rana.
Chairman, I would like to declare non-pecuniary interest in item 9 and 10. I happen to have a chat with the applicant. I won't take part in voting and will be leaving the room.
Thank you very much. Matters. So first of all, can we agree the minutes from the last meeting? Agreed? Yeah. Thank you. Matters notified advance or urgent. Item 6, number 18, St Edmunds Avenue has been withdrawn.
Oh, sorry, that's wrong.
Is that wrong now?
No, sorry.
They're not. Hasn't been withdrawn.
No, that's irrelevant. Yeah,
just ignore that. Just ignore this. Okay, fine. All matters. To confirm public and private reports, all of them are in part 1. Someone's trying to throw me off here. I know it's election time coming up, but this is we'll keep it under control. Okay, so first item is item 6, which is the Tara Kindergarten. Fiona, please, thank you, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Chairman. I just turn to the slides now. So this site sits on Cross Road, which you will recognise as I go through the presentation. It's got a frontage onto the Oxford Road, just over from Uxbridge High Street, and whilst it's set behind sort of the side boundary wall to Oxford Road, it is in quite a prominent position. If we look at the site constraints, you can see it's in the conservation area, as discussed in the report in some detail, and there's also some important trees of high value around the site. So just turning to a bird's eye view, you can see the site there, the proximity to Uxbridge, and here is a view looking north towards the building. No, sorry, looking southeasterly towards the building, and it's that blue building you can just see in the glimpsed view behind. This is a photo looking north, so you can see the proximity to the pedestrian bridge we talk about again in the report, and you can see that roof form, the sort of unassuming appearance we described, and the traditional materials there. This is a view looking south, and you can see those prominent trees at the front. A view looking north again just noting the trees there and the proximity to Uxbridge High Street. And these are some street scene views that I thought were helpful, showing from the Oxford Road in either direction. So I'll just try and point out on the images where the building is here, and again here, sort of sited behind that footway bridge. That's a direct view onto the site from across the road. And that just gives you some context. So this relates to the planning history. You've got a lot of information in the report again about how the scheme has evolved over time. We had a previous refusal by the Majors Planning Applications Committee for 21 apartments on the site with a flexible community use, and it was set over 7 stories. That was refused for 6 reasons. They're detailed in the report in full, but it related to the loss of the building, the overall design, the impact on trees, and then some other reasons that related to things that could have been conditioned or resolved with a legal agreement. So noise, something relating to the green infrastructure, and also Section 106 contributions. So that just gives a very brief overview of that history we discuss in detail. So turning to the application site itself, we see the site as highly constrained because of the trees, because of the conservation area, and so on. So the design has kind of been born out of those constraints and also the site history. So you can see we've got a building that's quite constrained within the plot, which is one of the concerns officers have raised. And you can see the layout here. We talk again about a ground floor accessible unit. It's this unit here, and the parking for that unit is just here. And this is the community space at ground floor with the entrance we discussed in the report in this position. And then turning to the first floor, this is the community space again. And then you've got apartments set over the other floors with the balconies, which are just shaded in each of these views. Turning to the roof plan, we've got some PV panels up there, and you can see the shape and position of the building there. This is just the existing elevations in sort of a truer form that you don't necessarily perceive like that from the street because of everything around it. And then this is our proposed elevation drawings. The north elevation, the proposed east elevation, and helpfully they've included the pedestrian bridge in there for context, and also the wall to the front. The south elevation and the west elevation there. So this is a short section just from north to south, again showing you that kind of very built-up context of Uxbridge on the other side of the Oxford Road. And that's the sort of long section east to west, where you can see those buildings in the Conservation Officer that we talk about quite a lot in the report. Turning to this slide, this is a proposed visual produced by the architects, which I think is very helpful to show that context, the design of the new building and its form. And another view there just from the other side. Officers are concerned about the application as explained in some detail in the report, and we have recommended refusal on 4 grounds. So the loss of the building is a concern, the design of the new building is a concern, and also the community floor space, how it's split over 2 floors, the overall size and how usable that would be longer term. There is a 4th reason for refusal relating to a legal agreement, which could be overcome with that being secured as part of a Section 106. So it's those 3 key reasons that we are unable to support the application on. That concludes my presentation, Chairman.
Thank you, Fiona. That was very good. I think that's quite informative. Now we go to the petitions now. I have a Miss Ram. Would you like to take a seat? You have 5 minutes. We have a traffic light system here. He starts off at green for 4. When it goes to amber, you've got 1 left, and red, I will stop you. Yes, you do. You must press it. That's it. Press that one. And then off you go. Don't worry, none of us bite. Okay? Okay, whenever you're ready.
The residents of Rockingham Bridge, Uxbridge Conservation Area fully support the Planning Officer's recommendation that this proposal be refused. The Planning Officer's report includes both national and council policies detailing why the former single-storey telephone exchange should be preserved. The building is of architectural interest, a community asset, and sets the tone for the area. It is a non-heritage building that is attractive and unassuming, whilst relating in scale, mass and design to the others in the conservation area. It announces entry into a quiet residential community characterised mainly by two-storey 19th century workers' cottages with their small front gardens and spaces of green. This application will see it demolished and replaced by a standard urban contemporary three-storey flat roof structure. The proposed residential density and footprint for the plot is greater than that found in the rest of Rockingham Bridge. Therefore, the proposal does not respect the historic character and appearance of its surrounding area. The former telephone exchange is unique, and we hope the councillors agree with us in that this piece of Uxbridge history is worth keeping. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. That was very nice. That was well done, I must say. Does any councillors like to have any questions? No? You may go back to your seat. Thank you very much. You may turn that off for me. That'd be much appreciated. Thank you. Okay. The applicant agent, I believe we've got a written submission, which has been. And Mr. Adelaide, are you here, present? Would you like to come to the? As I had said before, you have 5 minutes. Read when I said you to stop, but off you go. Thank you.
I'm the director of Christopher Adelaide Architecture. We are a practice that specialises in small multi-unit projects with a track record of getting planning of interesting sites, and we have worked on this application since February 21, issuing a planning application in April 21, and since then worked closely with the LPA on the design proposal, and we seek a positive outcome for the approval of this application for our client and also the people of Uxbridge. The current building is based between, the two typologies, that of the large-scale city centre and the 1960s circular ramped car park beyond the Oxford Road, and our site within the Rockingham Conservation Area, with a mixture of housing types, such as the Victorian terraces and the 1970s estate. And this is flanked by a pedestrian walkway that oversails the Oxford Road, looking down onto our site. To the south side, there's also the recently approved and nearly completed almshouses, of which I must confess, our proposal has taken the brick type references and not to forget the ambition for the future types of quality housing tenure for this conservation area. The photograph that you have seen in our report presents the current state of the site, with mature trees to be retained and the current concreted landscape upon which the building sits, and a very underutilised ex-telephone exchange, with one of its elevations painted yellow and blue, with a pitch tiled roof, and which its previous uses were such as nursery, a scout's hut, and currently used by church groups on Sundays. As architects, we look to preserve buildings and character, but we also look to design for the future requirements of our residents, and to create buildings that should be built to inspire or to provide for the few occupants to be inspired by where they live. Our proposal, which we are extremely proud of which provides 3 key opportunity factors and that we feel would be a major improvement to the current status quo. So 1, the site will provide 6 above standard aspect homes, including a fully accessible ground floor home with ample external amenity spaces, all designed to discourage overlooking to the existing residents' properties across the Crossroad and Lawn Road. 2, a fully sustainable development within walking distance of public transportation and the town centre amenities, taking the advantage of renewable energy sources such as photovoltaic panels, air source heat pumps, and designed to build with a fabric-first passive design principle, all progressive design things that will go towards the borough's zero carbon targets. And number 3, the ambition of our client to provide a community asset over 2 floors with a secure, user-friendly, adoptable and accessibly wheelchair-friendly space with easy access to public transport and local amenities. As previously mentioned, our Crossroads site sits in between these 2 landscapes, and our proposal will bridge the gap between them. Our proposal comfortably sitting at 3 stories, This is in line with the Almhouse and the 1970s estate on Cross Road. We believe the design proposal is of high quality and design merit, that the massing observes the character of the site constraints, connecting visually with the site context. We're providing a more interesting type of architecture. These constraints we have had to work with has helped carve a new type of plan that gives interesting internal layouts and are London Plan compliant. The proposed planning applications that you've got showcases elevational treatment in windows, directional to allow good daylight and sunlight, and the strong relief and articulation of the window reveals. The window is also directed in such a way so to prevent direct overlooking, whilst warranting adequate quality internal light within the habitable spaces. Each home is provided with private amenity that is a bonus in today's way of living, especially with working from home and our new family types. So, my closing point. Please think of the positives and the possibilities of future generations of residents that will be allowed by our development to enjoy the Rockingham Conservation Area. Please think of the new quality spaces provided for community groups to easy access, public transport, so to reduce the need to travel by car to site. Please think of the sustainable development towards the 2030 government guidelines for climate change principles. For this reason, I would like to take this opportunity to ask all the councillors and people in this room to recommend this development for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adelaide. Does anyone have questions for the applicant? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much. You've turned the button off and you've directed it. Thank you for that. Okay. So, I'll open it to the floor. Councillor Tuckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I'll kick off the debate, I suppose, because I remember the previous application, last year or the year before, whenever it was. And I think I made a point at that time that it was a nice development, but in the wrong place. And I'm kind of leaning to that sort of consideration on this aspect. Although I do recognise that there's been a substantial reduction in size, but that also means we've got no affordable housing as a result of the reduction. But I will ask officers a couple of questions, and one is that in the previous refusal reason we had trees was a reason, and I remember there was a very lengthy debate at the last committee meeting around the protection of these trees during the construction. Just want to be sure if officers are satisfied that refusal reason has gone away, or does it need to be included? I also note from the reports, and I do hear what the applicant said there about amenity space, but it does actually say in the report, I think on page 40, that it is significantly short on amenity space. And I know it also goes on to say that because it wasn't included as a refusal reason last time, then we can't include it this time. But this is a completely different scheme. You know, it's not like a tweak. This is like a new development which is substantially smaller in size. And the other question I'd like to ask officers is the view on the fact that there's no family accommodation included. We know Hillingdon is short on 3-bedroom and above family properties. This scheme does not propose any such mix, so I'll be interested to hear what officers' view on that is. But that's it for me, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Yes, can I just ask officers to come back on those questions? Fiona, I think you're going to object now.
Absolutely, thank you so much. The tree issue has been really carefully dealt with, so the applicant has provided tree information and liaised very closely with our tree officer to make sure that this can be built without harming those trees. So that's been at the forefront of this design, how the footprint has evolved and so on. So we're confident it can be done whilst preserving those trees, because we all see them as very important. The amenity space issue, it definitely is a key consideration, and there isn't enough. There is a negative, if you like, in the scheme weighing in the balance there. However, we do have private balconies. Given the sort of 1- and 2-bed mix and the proximity to both the park and Uxbridge High Street, we're comfortable that in this particular location with this design we find that acceptable, so we haven't included that as a reason. It wasn't a reason for refusal last time with sort of a similar mix, so again we think on this particular site that would be acceptable. The family accommodation is another good point. The difficulty we have here is that the community space needs to go on the ground floor level, so that takes up a lot of the footprint, and naturally a family unit would usually go on the ground floor. That sort of works the best for those kinds of units. So they've prioritised the right things, I think, in that there's community floor space there and there's that accessible unit down there. And I think they've been restricted in that way. So I can understand on this, again, difficult, constrained site, why there's not a family unit. So I think the mix here, given the proximity to the high street and so on, would be acceptable. So I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Would you like to come back?
If I may just come back. No, thank you for those points. That's addressed that. I mean, again, what was said, I think the applicant said that, you know, this development bridges the gap between the main town centre and the conservation area that we're looking at now. I also remember from the last conversation that, you know, there was a very firm view from all of the committee members that the Oxford Road is the boundary. It's not part of the town centre, and I think we need to be looking very seriously at that. But I will gladly hear what other members have got to say on this one. Thank you.
Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Chair. I note that we talk about policy H10, which is 3-bedroom accommodation. It's not there. There's not a plain reason for refusal. However, what you have to consider here, a national planning policy expects us to weigh up the damage and the benefit, and that's totally missing. So I'm just making that point. I've gone through it's a very comprehensive report, and I appreciate the amount of effort the officers put in. My only disagreement with the officers is on policy DMHB 18, where it talks about, in a special local local area, the need to enhance the street scene by having a amenity space. Now, I totally agree that the local park compensates for a lack of amenity space, but in this particular policy, and this has been developed in a confined location. I actually think we can apply an additional policy for refusal, which is 18. But I'm not going to die in a ditch about it, because you've put in a lot of reasons for refusal anyway. However, I'm going to propose that we go with officer's recommendation, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Yeah.
I'll just chime in and say, I mean, this application has been determined by majors in the past, and the amenity space could have been raised as a ground for refusal. I understand that the token is that we shouldn't move the goalpost in citing that because it wasn't mentioned the last time, it can't be mentioned now. But I would say that given that it's a fresh application, it's materially changed in its reduction, and if it's considered that the amenity space is still not sufficient, notwithstanding its reduction, it's something that can be raised as a ground if members are of that view. It's something that can be explored in discussion, and if it's felt that it's a rational, reasonable ground to raise, it can be stated. I appreciate that the planning officer has mentioned that the local park is not so far, and that the high street, there's benefit there. But at the same time, this is the proposed site, and the amenity space is in those confines of what the proposal is. But I would leave that to members to debate.
Thank you, Kerry. I'd like planning officers to come back on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I thought it might be useful if I just give you my thoughts on that issue as well. So, completely understand what Kerry is saying, and that's absolutely fair. We're looking at this as a fresh scheme, but I think if we were to now go down the route of including the amenity space as an issue, we would have to be very clear as a committee why we felt it was an issue on this scheme and why it wasn't last time, because I would have some concerns about the appeal process if we were to sort of tack that on without a sort of a really valid reason.
Thank you very much for that. I've got Councillor Kaufman, and then I've got Councillor Borough. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Chairman. I sort of want to go back to the petitioner who said small is beautiful, and I clocked that comment. Pardon?
Like diamonds do.
Thank you for the correction, Chairman. But what they're getting, it worked. This worked in that area, and all right, it's not a beautiful building, but instead of that, we're putting up a lovely, shiny, not even brick, flat roofed, whatever, a building that architecturally does not fit the area. I will vote with the officers on this because of the report, but I just wanted to make that point.
That's fine. So you're seconding, correct? Because I have
yes.
a proposal, yeah?
Yeah.
Councillor Borough.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a very, very comprehensive report. We've got to make a decision, not on the history, what is on the table with us today. Okay, that's what we're looking at. And after listening to a member of the committee, I also agree that I recommend for a refusal. Okay, I know my colleagues have taken me away, but I third now instead of second.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, I totally agree with what's been said. Although I would like to say to the architects and that we do like good applications, and there was a lot of things that you did here with the solar panels and all that we like to see anyway. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work in this place. So I am proposed and seconded. I take it we're not going to add the immunity. I think it's I think it's one of those things that it's sort of borderline. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just to supplement what I was saying. What I'm saying is that if members did consider that as an additional ground, it's not something that is a write-off. If they feel that they've got adequate justification, whilst it wasn't debated at the last application, if they have spotted something that makes sense to them and they've got justification and reasoning, it's something that they can afford to do. It's not a write-off. It's not something that is prohibited. That's the point I'm making. Not telling them to do it, not telling them not to do it. I'm just trying to make it clear that that's something that they can explore if they choose to do once they've got good sound rationale.
Thank you, Kerry. I was trying to say that. I was asking if the committee wanted to add it or not, but we don't. So there we go. So we're proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands to go with officer's recommendation of refusal? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. If you want to leave the building, you may. Just obviously do quietly and no dancing and singing on the way out. Okay, so we go on to item number 7, which is 16 Deerings Drive, Pinner. Fiona, whenever you're ready.
Yes, thank you again, Chairman. So this application seeks permission to remove the tree that's just shown on the slide in front of you, circled in red by our tree officer. We are recommending refusal for this. The tree is in good condition. We don't have enough or any information to support the claims made regarding that there's potential structural damage or a real problem with regards to birds fouling from the tree onto property around the site, which was the reasons for the submission. The evidence we would need for something like structural problems resulting from a tree would be things like soil analysis, root testing, crack and level monitoring. There's kind of a lot of evidence you would need to produce to justify the loss of a tree like that. It is a local landscape feature of high amenity value, and officers would recommend refusal of this application to remove the tree. And that concludes my presentation, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a written statement which Anisha's going to read for us all.
Thank you, Chairman. This written statement is submitted on behalf of the petitioners. We thank the case officer for a detailed report and ask that the officer recommendation of refusal for the reasons given is upheld, including the informative shown at 2.2 to be added to the decision notice. TPO 363 was created in 1980 when St. Michael's School closed and the land was designated for a housing development. This line of magnificent red oaks plays an important role in giving a green corridor between Deerings Drive and Gerard Gardens. The infill estate Deerings Drive was designed in a manner to keep all the important trees on the former school site. It is proven that mature trees benefit wildlife, help to keep down pollution, and are vital in the fight against global warming. In this Jubilee year, we are asked to plant trees, not cut them down. We trust that the committee will endorse the recommendation and refuse the application. Thank you for listening.
That was short and sweet. That was nice. Okay, is the applicant here, Miss Kerry? No? Okay, fine. So we have no councillors, so I'll go straight to the floor. Who wants to take me away? Councillor Moores, Councillor Tuckwell.
Well, Mr Chairman, we have no material evidence this tree is causing any damage to the building. It's a perfectly healthy tree, so therefore I propose we go with officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Moores. And Councillor Tuckwell.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, in the absence of any evidence or analysis or technical information, I'm happy to second officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. So that we have a proposer and a seconder. Can I have a show of hands of those in favour of officer's recommendation? Thank you very much. That is agreed. Now we go on to the last petition item of the evening, which is item 8, the Fairway Ruislip. And I believe Councillor Tuckwell would like to make a slight... yes, the famous words. See you later, Arnie. Right. As soon as he's left the building, you may start, Fiona. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, just one bit of housekeeping, that we would like to actually add another condition to this application relating to the reinstatement of the footway. There's an existing garage sort of around the corner of the site, which I will show you on one of the images, and we would welcome the reinstatement should members be minded to grant this application this evening, but I'll point that out in the presentation as we go along. So this is the application site on the northern side of the road on a corner plot. You can just see on the constraint plans there's nothing of particular note. You can see on this plan quite helpfully the sort of building line on either side of the street, the return building line as well, and how that property sits in an angled position on that corner plot. So this site itself, we can just see the position of the building there, and the existing plans show you sort of the elevations of the building and the associated garage on the side. In terms of the proposal, we've got the application includes a new 2-storey side extension in this location here, which has been previously approved. The ridge line is also proposed to be raised, which you'll see better in the elevation drawings as I turn to them, but also a change of use of this building from one single family dwelling into 2, and it's split in this way, so not set over different floors as flats, but almost similar fashion to a pair of semi-detached properties. Turning to the elevations, you can see that increase in ridge height. Now that has been previously approved alongside that 2-storey side extension. The main change between the two applications in terms of the external appearance is in this location here where my pointer is, that small canopy addition to the front of what they've described in the application as plot 2, so this property as a result of the development. A bird's eye view just shows the property in context and the sort of larger footprint when compared to the others. And here are some photos for you. So that's the rear of the site, the front of the site sort of from within, and you can see the garage on the side here. That would be the position of where the canopy is, just next to this existing porch structure. That's a view just looking onto the property side, straight on, but given the angle you can note the building lines. And that's the garage that's as existing, sort of breaching that return building line that would be removed, and a side extension in this location here. One last image there just to show you the proximity of that garage to be demolished. And I'll just point out, which I failed to after promising to, that this is the crossover that we're hoping to be reinstated and would like to add a condition in relation to. So that concludes my presentation, Chairman. Oh, and I would just, apologies, just been reminded by Ros Johnson to mention that we've suggested a condition to prohibit the conversion of either property to a HMO. The neighbours have raised concerns about that this property resulting in 2 could have permitted development rights to change to 2 separate HMOs of up to 6 people. So in order to make this development acceptable, that condition is considered necessary given the number and volume of people that would result from that potential change of use. So I just wanted to draw members' attention to that, but That now concludes my presentation, Chairman. Thank you.
Well done, Fiona. Thank you. Again, very well written. We have a written statement. Anisha, again, your lovely tones, we're going to hear them.
This written statement is on behalf of the 38 petitioners and 10 individual households who have objected to this application. The current property is a landmark imposing detached house on a very prominent corner plot. The building is slightly elevated from the road due to the lie of the land. Adjoining properties on the fairway are detached bungalows, some with chalet-style roof extensions. The modest height of the bungalows serves to emphasise the bulk of the subject property. Despite having been extended many times in the past, a recent application to massively increase the volume of the property was firstly understandably rejected, but then after amendments to increase the volume even further by raising the roof height was inexplicably approved by delegated authority. The consent granted in April 2021 ignored a number of important factors, and the majority of the petitioners were not consulted about this application. The proposed two-storey side extension will be forward of the Mount Pleasant building line by some considerable margin. This is not permitted by council guidelines. The two-storey rear extensions will have a massive impact on the street scene and perceived volume of the property when viewed from Mount Pleasant, and particularly from the front windows of numbers 2 and 4. The increase in ridge height can also be seen to be out of all proportion compared to the adjoining bungalows, which also have a much smaller frontage. The photo below also shows how much closer the rear bedroom windows will be to overlooking the garden of 1 Mount Pleasant. These were circulated earlier. Viewed from the fairway, the increased ridge height and side elevation has a great impact. Increasing the ridge height is against council guidelines. Note, height and bulk of subject property compared to adjoining bungalows. The rear extensions will bring the bedroom windows closer to the boundary with 1 Mount Pleasant, greatly increasing overlooking. The increase in roof height will cast a great shadow on the garden as the sun traverses behind. There is a window with obscured glazing in the lounge of 1 Mount Pleasant facing the subject property. The increase in ridge height coupled with the two-storey rear and side extensions are likely to result in a significant loss of light. Unfortunately, the report presented to the committee does not give these serious issues due weight and attention. Turning to the application to convert the extended house to a pair of semis, all nearby houses and bungalows on the northern side of the fairway and eastern side of Mount Pleasant are detached, so converting to semis is not in keeping with the street scene. The conversion to a pair of semis would entail a permanent loss of character and identity for what has been a landmark house in the area since 1930s. As there is limited public transport, new owners, adult children are likely to have cars, and these will be parked near the junction. There are short windows of traffic chaos morning and afternoon at the junction of Mount Pleasant and the fairway during the school run due to the proximity of Field End and St Swithin Wells primary schools. The Highways Department are unlikely to be aware of this. Any additional vehicle movements or cars parked at the junction will exacerbate this chaos and endanger local children. The proposed internal layouts of the two semis lend themselves to use as HMOs with multiple bedrooms and bathrooms. Such a use would generate a number of extra cars and be detrimental to the neighbourhood. The existing house is in good condition, having been extensively refurbished by a previous owner. It is also one of the most desirable houses in the locality, and as such is often hindered on sale by the constraint of the price ceiling for the area. In consequence, the last application to massively extend is unlikely to be economically viable, and it is quite likely that the current application to convert the house to a pair of semis was always part of a two-stage application plan to minimise objections. Therefore, it is not certain that the first stage will be implemented if this application is rejected. The committee is requested to refuse consent for the conversion to a pair of semis, and if legislation permits, also consider revoking the previous consent for the large extensions. Thank you.
Well done, Anisha. All of that in 5 minutes. Fantastic. Mr. Chowdhury, would you like to come to the applicant? You have your 5 minutes.
I'm the applicant for the proposed extensions and subdivision of 182 the Fairway Ruislip to provide 2 dwellings. Thank you for allowing me to address the committee to address some of the concerns raised by the residents. The property is located on the junction with Mount Pleasant and is set at an angle to its immediate neighbours, The house has a wide frontage and sits on a generous plot. In April 2021, consent was granted to alternate and extend 182 the Fairway. The application before you today uses the footprint, height and volume permitted by that consent to create one pair of semi-detached houses. The building can be easily subdivided with little impact on the street scene or neighbours. I understand that the residents have raised a number of concerns about the development, particularly the change of scale and character of the extensions. The applicant before you today uses the same footprint, height and volume permitted by the Council in 2021 to create one pair of semi-detached houses containing 1 times 3 bedroom and 1 times 4 bedroom units, with no further modifications to the 2021 approval. In response to further observations, I confirm that I have no intentions of converting the property into an HMO, and I would accept a planning condition preventing this change. A number of safety concerns have been raised on highway matters. I note that the highway officer has reviewed the proposal and has not raised any objections. Residents have expressed concerns about potentially cramped living arrangements, resulting in unstable living conditions for occupiers. The proposal before you complies with policy DMHB 16 housing standards of the Hillingdon local plan. The planning officer has confirmed that both houses exceed the minimum standard for internal and private outdoor amenity space, providing generous and comfortable family accommodations. In summary, the proposal is in full accordance with the Hillingdon planning policy and has the planning officer's full support. I will be providing 2 family homes in an area with an acute housing shortage. I trust you will support your officer's recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. Does anybody have any questions for you? No, that's fine. Thank you very much. You may go and sit down. Thank you. Okay, I'll open to the floor. Who's going to take Councillor Cawthorne? Off you go, Councillor Goldman.
I'll start with a question. I'll comment a bit later on, but I just want to make sure I'm completely clear on what exactly is different about this application compared to the one that was consented. What I'm taking from what I've heard and seen is that, to all intents and purposes, it's very similar, beyond the fact that there are now to be 2 self-contained dwellings on the site. Am I correct, or can you just summarise, in essence, what's different about this application, please?
Fiona, would you like to answer that?
Yes, thank you. That's exactly right. So externally, everything has already been approved. So the raise in the ridge and the 2-storey side extension has been given permission previously. The only external change is the addition of this canopy just here, next to the entrance of plot 2, and minor tweaks to the fenestration. I think that if we were assessing this afresh without the previous planning permission, I still do think it's acceptable in visual terms. We've got a different plot compared to all the others. The return building line is staggered. You've got an existing garage in this position. The extension complies with our policy in relation to being set back and set down, and there is a benefit to creating an additional home there, an additional family home. So officers have weighed sort of all of that into the balance, as well as the existing planning permission, and believe that it's acceptable. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cawthorne. Ross, did you want to come in now or in a minute? No, you're not adding anything? No? Okay, fine. Sorry, did that answer your question?
He does. I mean, I'll comment now since I've got the floor, if I may. Look, I think to a large extent we are hamstrung by that which has been decided by those who came before us, and maybe some of those are on this committee. I struggle with what was contended before, but that's not before us tonight. It is what we are asked to consider. There is already in my view, I'm struggling with the recommendation, to be honest. I'll listen to a good argument. I'll hear what others have got to say. But to me, there is a fair quantum of development on site already, leaving aside what's already been consented. And whilst one can cite the London plan in terms of what it says about, density, additional dwellings, and what have you, local context is important. It's a residential suburban area of Ruislip, and I think And whilst the report says it's considered acceptable, these are, with great respect to officers, these are subjective assessments. So in my view, it's creeping beyond the realms of acceptability. That's where I'm leaning at the moment. But I will listen to a good argument, and I'll hear what others have got to say before I come to a view.
Okay, Councillor Coffin.
Thank you, Chairman. This house is probably the best house in South Ruislip, I think. And it's been like that for many, many years, and before that it was a doctor's surgery, and nothing's changed to the front of the actual building, except that porch, am I right? That's right. So, in essence, you've got lots of parking there. The building stays the same, and it stands out, and everyone knows that it stands out. And alright, it's not in keeping with the street scene, but it is, if you know what I mean. Yeah? You don't. Anyway, I will go along with officers' recommendations on that, Chairman.
You propose?
Yeah.
You propose that, thank you. Okay, Councillor Wallen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To me, according to the report and presentation, I feel that this application is a very good application and provides additional unit, residential unit. It also guarantees the adequate parking for both the units. Not very detrimental to the local street scene and local character of the area, so I would like to second to approve it.
Thank you, Councillor Arno. That's seconded. Councillor Borough.
Thank you very much, Chairman, allowing me to speak. I think it's a very good application, and it's a good side. My only concern is that I'd hate to see that converted into HMO. So I go with the officer with the condition that it will not be HMO. Yeah. I know it's been mentioned, but I wanted to make sure it goes into the books.
Kerry, would you like to come in?
Yes. Given that our planning experts have introduced two new proposed conditions, it's good if members have some commentary and add some reasoning if they are looking to add those to be approved or not. Yes, because conditions need to have reasons. Yeah.
Some more. Ros, do you want to come in first? Right, just a second.
Whereas I have some sort of sympathy with the sentiments that's been expressed, when you have a large building like this, you can subdivide it, and there's no planning reasons for not actually allowing this to go forward. I mean, I understand the sentiment being expressed. Unfortunately, we have to make decisions on planning laws, and I can see no reason that this should go forward. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Ross. Would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to clarify about the condition. So the condition to prevent subdivision into an HMO, we've already included that in your report, so that is accompanied by a reason, so we're covered there. The additional condition which my colleague mentioned verbally to reinstate the footway at the access that will be made redundant, that would be in the interest of highway safety, so if members were content we could add some wording to that effect.
Thank you very much for that. I would love that.
Okay. So, we proposed and seconded. We are going to add the additional footway condition. The condition of the HMO is already in your pack here. I just wanted officers to reassure residents that we have taken that into consideration. So, I'm proposing. So, Councillor Cawthorne, you want to come in?
Yes, I mean, look, I've listened to what's been said. I mean, I can see what the Borough view is. I don't think we'll get anywhere if this goes to appeal, but if I'm putting my hand up for it, I'm doing it reluctantly and on the basis that we've got nowhere else to go with it, frankly. Not because I like the application, I do think it's overdone, but I will make that point in raising my hand in support, if that's the prevailing view of colleagues.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cawthorne. So, as I said, proposed and seconded, additional footway condition which we leave to Ros to sort out. Those in favour of this application, please indicate. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. You may leave. Thank you. Yes, please. Right, Whenever you're ready, Fiona, item 9. Welcome back, Councillor Tyler.
Yeah. Thank you again, Chairman. So 2 decisions to be made this evening on 2 Westbourne Parade, but I'll just do it as one presentation. So the planning application is for the change of use, and it's before members this evening because it would be a change to a sewage use in part with the beauty salon at ground floor. And we've brought along the advert application that's associated with it just for completeness. I'm causing trouble again by suggesting another condition edit for this one. So on condition 5 that we've recommended, we would just like a tweak to the wording which says instead of the premises, it would say the commercial premises, because we were concerned that it may prohibit the hours of use of the residential unit above, which wouldn't be reasonable. So it's just that one addition. So just turning to the slides, this is the application site on Westbourne Parade. It's on the Uxbridge Road. It's opposite the locally listed Star Public House, so you can see it on that drawing just to the northeast. A bird's eye view of the site, and this is a photo of the front elevation, the existing store. It's a street scene view just to show it in context with the neighbours, and sort of a longer view showing the commercial premises at the moment. So this is just a location plan, and turning to the existing floor plans, you can see it's laid out as a shop at ground floor level with ancillary accommodation above. The shop front has one entrance door in it, and there's sort of historic extensions at the back. The existing elevation against the proposed, so you can see the existing doorway there. We have a new shop front going in with a doorway that will serve the 2 units that operate kind of together, and then we have a new separate residential access on the right hand side. So the sections just show you the proposed sort of hanging sign, and there is a benefit to the existing shutter box moving inside the unit rather than being outside the unit. And then this is the layout of the ground floor. So you come into this shared entrance, and we have the beauty salon at ground floor level, and the treatment rooms at the back with the reception and a waiting area to the front, which still gives life to the parade of shops there. And then you go into this area, and there's still an element of Class E retained. So your members will remember that there's been a change to the use classes order, and we now have Class E, which is what this shop is counted as. So just wanted to make reference to that. And then above the shop, we have a new studio flat of an appropriate size and layout. We've got dual aspect and carefully considered sort of kitchen and bathroom facilities with its own independent entrance. And that's just the proposed elevation showing you the signage in context. And then this is the second application we can just see for the adverts. So at the moment we've got a single fascia sign. Here it would read sort of as a single fascia sign similarly to others, but with a site split to identify that there's 2 premises there, and then nothing above that separate residential access. So that concludes my presentation, Chairman. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Fiona. That's thorough. So, Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for a good presentation. Yeah, I've got no particular issues with this. It's also good to see business is developing. The one question I have got, though, and I'm sure there's an answer, I know the access officer was originally unhappy with the width of the door, which I think the report says has been addressed. I just wanted to check, was that the same for the doors that are to the treatment rooms as well? Because if you look at the plan pack, page 161, I think you've got a number of treatment rooms there. Just want to make sure that those are also accessible as well. That was my question. Thank you.
Through you, Chairman, I think that's a really good question, and I hadn't picked up on it, and by I think you're right that these look of a reduced width. But what we can do, that would be covered by building regulations anyway, but I think for completeness we could add an informative to just advise the applicant they would need to reconsider that before going to building regulations. Thank you, Councillor.
Well done.
I think
well
on that basis I'd be happy to move officer's recommendation.
Okay, you're proposing. That's great. Councillor Borough.
Thank you, Chairman. I have no problem with it. I think I'll go with the officer recommendation, and it's going to be well used. Yeah.
Okay,
So
I'm going to
second that.
Yeah, second it, thank you. I'm going to take both of you for both of them. So, okay, so we're going to have two votes, but I'll take you both as proposed and seconded. You happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
No one else wants to say anything? No? Okay, so item 9. Can I have a show of hands, please, for all in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That's unanimous. With the additional see, forgetting himself, informative about the door width. Thank you. Yeah. And then on the item 10, do we agree? Yep. Thank you. That's unanimous as well. Well done. Thank you. So you've got that initially. Okay, right. Going to go to the last item of the evening, which is item 11. Fiona?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Members will probably remember this one as well. We're coming back with all the history this evening. So on the 7th of December 2021, members resolved to grant planning permission. Members resolved to grant planning permission for this scheme, but we gave you quite a complicated recommendation, which allowed for some additional consultations to run to make sure that we were capturing everything in full. So that reconsultation came back, and there weren't what officers believed to be any material changes to what was said, but it felt for completeness and transparency it was best to bring it back to you for a decision, particularly because there was an issue around the certificate of the site and the land ownership, and they needed to go back and serve notice. So they had to change it to a certificate B so that they served notice on a housing association that had an interest. So just wanted to draw that to members' attention. Turning quickly to sort of the constraints plan, where I think this is the most helpful. So it's this existing residential gym that's only serving and used by the existing residential properties there. So the original scheme was for 37 flats, and they had this gym available to use. They're now proposing to change this into residential accommodation. And again, the reason this is before committee is because we want to capture some affordable housing contributions as part of it. So it's only 2 units, but the original scheme was for 37. So if this had come before members at the time when that Section 106 was entered into, we would have got more affordable housing contributions as a result of there being 39 units. So that's why it's before you this evening, even though it's only 2 additional units. And the Section 106 agreement also ensures that those flats are permit-free as well. So in terms of external changes, there are none. It's just an uplift in new residential accommodation, which is a benefit, well laid out with appropriate sort of layout and design. And I don't have any other things to draw members' attention to, but happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. I do remember this. Yeah, I think we all remember it. So, Councillor Borough.
Thank you, Chairman. I do remember 2 as well. Over the years, we have approved several gyms into accommodation, and since we are short of accommodation, and I know there are a lot of other gyms opening nearby or around, so for that reason, I go with officer's recommendation. Yeah. I oppose it.
You're proposing, okay. Who else is it? Councillor Cook-Tuckwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I've got no issues with this, and it's nice to see a little bit more in the affordable housing pot as well. So I'd happily second officer's recommendation.
Okay, so I'm proposing second. You can have a show of hands. Those in favour? Thank you. That goes to officer's recommendation. Thank you very much, all of you, for this evening. I'd like to say thank you to the planning team. No amendments. I think we should remember that for ages. No amendments. So anyway, thank you all. Have a good evening, and this is the last one before our election, so I will hope well. Councillor Morse, I'd like to thank you very much for all your help, because I know you're not standing, are you? So, no, but you never know. But I'd like to say I've known you for many years. We both started back in 2002, and it's been a pleasure. So you look after yourself and enjoy your retirement. Okay? And thank you.
I appreciate your comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.